Mr. Music, it's time. Stop playing with the cars.
I wasn't playing with the cars. I was doing scientific research with them. That's all. Yeah, that's what I was doing. So welcome to week 11, everybody. We've been talking about a lot of matter and energy and how it transfers in between and what work is. And so now we're getting to the point where, how do we make work easier? So there's just one of me, and if I want to do something, I have 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso, and a head. I could maybe push a few things, but I can only do so much myself. I get some friends, but still, we can only do so much ourselves. And I wanted to take a look back at what work really is. Go back to that idea that work is really just taking energy and transferring it to move something, to make something kind of do what we want it to. And one of the ways we do this is we use tools. We figured tools out. Tool making is one of the great things that has allowed us to build huge buildings and the pyramids and dig giant canals and move oceans, literally move lakes and create our own landscapes to make life more habitable and more fun for us to be in. But we're not the only things that make tools. Lots of animals actually make tools. In fact, birds weave these awesome nests. Now, primitive humans wove baskets. We did a lot of stuff. Now imagine a little bird with a little beak making this nest. And what is this? It's a house. It can raise its children in it. It can stay warm, so if it snows and gets too cold, they have a place where they can be protected and safe from the elements and from the environment. From the rain, when it gets really cold when you're outside in the rain, they go in here just like going inside of your own house. That's an amazing tool that they've made. Then there's the classic rock. Now, a lot of times scientists will look back and archaeologists will look back and they will find rock tool using, which I believe started with Homo habilis as the point when humans changed from being just an animal in the wild to becoming the civilization that we have today. And they look at rocks, and there's tons of animals that use rocks. In fact, I was face-to-face with one about 5 or 6 years ago, which was a sea otter. And sea otters do this really adorable thing. They're a little fluffy with their little paws and stuff, and they dive down and they'll pick up shells like clams and oysters. And they have a rock, and they'll put it on their little tummies, and they'll bash at the rock and break it open to get to the oyster inside so they can eat it. And sometimes they'll even have a favorite rock that they put in a spot, and they'll keep using that same one over and over. And that sounds kind of like a tool to me. I don't know if it does for you, but they're using that rock. They're using it to get some food. It's kind of what we use tools for as well. Then we have a person which I think you mostly would be familiar with, which is Jane Goodall. Yes, yes. Some of us were her during our historic Halloween. And she was watching chimpanzees, and she realized that something as simple as a stick became an amazing instrument because they love these little morsels. What were they called, Miss Kim?
Termites.
Termites, that's right. And they are so tasty, and they pop like little pop rocks in your mouth, like candy, delicious. But they also bite back. And if you take your hand and you put it in a termite mound, they're gonna bite your hand, and that's gonna hurt a lot. So they figured if you get a stick and you put it in there and the little termites are angry, they'll all bite on the stick, and then they can pull the stick out, and then they can go nom 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 nom. Go again, nom 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 nom, until they're filled up on termites. So they were using a stick kind of like we would use a fork, a knife, a spoon, or chopsticks. They were using the same thing. So this is a food utensil for them. Looks like a stick.
A termite kebab.
A termite kebab. Yes, making termite kebabs with this. So these are all tools that lots of different animals use in lots of different environments, and you can find these tools all over. But we evolved those tools, and it helped us to build those big buildings and those big civilizations, because although I'm looking at this stick here, that stick isn't gonna make the Empire State Building. It's not gonna make a giant lake. So we're gonna have to figure out ways to take these basic tools that we first figured out how to use and convert them to where we can make better work, so we can transfer this force to do more to do more work. So we figured out that these are simple machines. Now we've figured out that there's 6 of them, and they affect the force in one way. That's why it's simple. Things that affect the force in multiple ways, no longer a simple machine. These are the ones that built us as a civilization. These are the cornerstones and the building blocks of our ability to innovate and create. So the first we're going to talk about is the incline plane. And as you can see, it's gradual. It's a gradual increase in the height because of the angle, and it's a gradual increase to go up. So with something like an incline plane like this, and you might recognize one of those in something you drive on a lot because we have huge mountains here. And do you just drive up a mountain? No, it's too steep. You can't put a car up that. It's way too steep. Your car would probably fall over and fall down the mountain. But we've dug these beautiful roads out in the mountain, and they go and they wind, and that's an incline plane the whole way up. You're driving that car all the way up a mountain, incline plane, you come down the other side, slow descent, because just because you got up the mountain, you're gonna come down the other side, and you're gonna fall straight down the mountain. So it's a nice gradual drop down the mountain, and that's a nice incline plane. The next one we have is a wedge. Wedge, notice the triangle, very similar, we're just using it in a different way. Wedges are usually smaller. Good wedges are like our scissors. And what they do is, you know how when you watch a scissor and it cuts through paper, it's taking a larger force, the strength of your hand, and honing it down to a small point. So a much bigger force up here, coming down to a much smaller area there, increases the amount of force that you're putting into a small area. So it's transforming it from a big slow force into a small pointy, just tight force, just right there pushing down. Next we have a lever. Now, lever, you might say, what's that? But if you ever been on a seesaw, maybe? It's got a little triangle in the center. Notice the triangle continues through these, and it sits right with a plank right in between it. And it just goes back and forth and back and forth. So you apply force to one side, you push down this side, the other side comes up. You push it back, it comes up. And that is like our seesaw, or teeter-totter. When I was a kid, we called them teeter-totters. Then you have wheels and axles. If you've been in a car, you've been in a wheel and axle. So it's a wheel, big round wheel, but it doesn't really do anything. But then if you put a pole through it, or a tube or a post on it, then it can carry something along with it. I mean, wagon wheels, that kind of is how we got from the East Coast to the West Coast of the United States. It's what drove the Great Expansion. They used wagons all over. You have rickshaws to carry people around. It's awesome. Just, there's your wheels and axles. Then we have pulleys. Now, pulleys are one of those things that allow us to lift something way higher than we normally could lift it. Like our flagpoles out here, they use a pulley. Imagine if Miss Lauren had to climb that pole every single day to put the flag up there. I don't think she'd be very happy with that. But if she can attach it at the bottom and then use a pulley to lift it all that way up, she ain't got to climb. I think she's much happier with that. Also, when you're driving around town, if you see one of those big cranes with those hooks on the ends, yeah, there's a big box above it. They're using a pulley so that they can lower it down, those big cables down, hook onto something, then lift it all the way back up. And those are all pulleys. So anytime you see a crane, that's a big pulley system working right there. And last, one of my favorites is screw. Now, screw is interesting because it uses a rotational force, and you'll notice the center, another one of those triangles, very similar to the wedge here. So it's using a rotational force. In other words, it's spinning similar to the way the wheel and axle and the pulley do, and then it's driving that force straight down, similar to the way the wedge drives force straight down. So it's rotating and then driving down. And screws are in everything. Screws are what hold things together. In fact, grabbing the chair here, if you ever look on the back of your chair, you'll notice that screws are actually holding your chair together. Super cool. It's what we use to bind it. So it goes, the screws, holds it right in place. They also use screws to move food from one location to another one. They use them on conveyor belts. They're used in so many different applications. So now we can actually go and look at our little presentation out here.
Mr. Music, you're doing it again.
It's science. It's for science. I'm checking out the wheel and axle, making sure that it's in line with what we have here. Just double checking. That's all. Just double checking. So yeah. So these are all of our simple machines laid out. We can start over here with the incline plane, and as you can see, our little weight is on here, and it's keeping the incline plane. So as it goes up, it's slowing it down, and if I take the weight off, it can really fly up there, but slows it down with its descent. So that would be the incline plane, and as you can see, the angle it has here can determine how much weight you can take up with how much force on it. Then we have our wedge. Wedge, just a simple thing like this, but if it's sitting on the ground and a door knocks into it, it's not gonna move, and it's gonna keep that door right there. And if I'm, say, using this like an axe or a shovel, it would scoop in, lift up, and be able to move that dirt around. It creates a wedge like that and then opens it up and moves it. Then we have our lever. And as you can see, whoa, let me see here. We have our two cars on either side and they're playing on their little seesaw now. Whoa! And one can push down, lifting the other one up, and then this one can push down, lifting that one up. And they can go back and forth, and that's our lever, or lever. And then you have the wheel and axle, much like on our car with the wheel and the axle right there, where this represents our axle, right here, spinning, and you can see our wheel over here, lifting that weight up, lifting it up, as we pull all that force through. And I'll lock that in. And then we come over to our pulley. Now you'll notice this pulley has 3 of those on it, but as a weight goes down here, it lifts it up there. Whoop. And as the weight comes down here, it lifts it up there. So imagine you're way down here on the ground and you're trying to lift something up. You can really get it high if you want. And you can put it exactly where you want it and then hold it in place with the counterweights. And then, of course, my favorite, and as you can see there, those are the teeth on this one. Now this one doesn't have a point like the others because there's already a hole here. So, and it screws in just like that. And it'll screw in and it can hold it right in place. Just like so. All the way down. And now that block isn't coming up. It is down there for good. And those are all of our simple machines. So look around, write down, make notes of any time you see one of these simple machines, and you'll realize that they're pretty much in everything. Well, almost everything. I think electronics might be a little hard to see inside, but you'll see them in a lot of places. All right, till next week. Bye.